listening to the UAE's #1 talk radio station.
This is the Business Breakfast
On Dubai Eye 103.8.
After the storm, the lull, the quiet, not so much before the storm, more after the storm. Look, there's been an absolute storm in the property and real estate market over the course of the last couple of years. Unless we forget, that's what we were talking about last Monday before we were affected by the heavy rains here in the UAE. It's not that often that we haven't spent an entire week talking about the property market, but it is time to refocus on it. COO of Property Monitor, Director of Market Intelligence and Research at Cavendish, Maxwell Zajahinke, has joined us now live here in the studio. John, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Likewise, morning.
All good?
Oh, good. I survived, got through relatively unscathed. A few buckets of water getting pailed out, and one of the lucky ones in ranches, I think. Yeah,
so an opportunity for us, as I said, as the dust settles, to reflect on that as well. I want to dive into the latest report and look ahead to the future. Obviously, it is a bright and rosy future as well. But before we do that, in light of the fact the central bank have stepped in overnight, and that will have an impact on home policies and home insurances as well, what's the property market learnt in the last week?
Well, one, I think that contents insurance is something that everyone should have. What was the number I think you talked about yesterday? 5%, 10% of people? That kind of shocked me. I think I'm one of the few that are included in that. So I think you'll see probably a rise in those premiums being taken out, and hopefully that rise in people taking them out keeps the premium down. So there's more money in that market. I think you're also going to have a look at when people are buying something that's been constructed, particularly single-family homes, they'll take a little more care and actually will hopefully take more care in checking out what happened. So it's one thing to fix it, put a coat of paint on right now, but is there any longer-term damage? We don't look at that here. If you're buying a property and you've got a mortgage, you'll get an appraisal done or evaluation, but you're not getting a home inspection done. You're not getting someone that's looking deep into if there's water damage that's long-term, ceiling damage, those sorts of things. So maybe we'll see a change towards that. Or maybe a couple of months down the road, it'll start to be forgotten. A couple of years down the road, it'll be... What, Storm?
Yeah, we haven't got long memories, have we, here?
No, and because you've got such a city that's growing and there's new people coming every day, it may soon be
developments.
Forgotten. And new developments, plenty of them.
Which is interesting, because there's been a big focus on developments over the course of the last 7 days. You know, one of the big questions asked is, how did your development fare, how did your community fare compared to others as well? So it's rather fitting that the latest Property Monitor data comes out, the monthly market report for March, shows growth spikes to highest rate since May of last year. And a lot of that has to do with new communities, isn't it?
Yeah, huge amount to do with new communities and off-plan projects. Right. Last year, we saw a launch pretty much every 26 hours was the number I touted. This year, we're about a launch every 18 hours. 3 months into the year, quarter into the year, about 34,000 properties, units added to that off-plan market, over 120 projects. This is a heck of a lot. And we're going to see a whole lot more coming in. And it's really started to have an effect on, you look at our monthly price increases. So we were trending really modest price growth for the last, say, 6 months. A lot of these months under 1% month on month. Now we've had a big spike to almost 2.5%. They're numbers that I didn't expect to see, probably should have, given the amount of off-plan coming in. And if we really wanted to sort of understand it, I wouldn't say we're going to keep seeing this. You're not going to see prices go up 3%, 2% every month going forward. You kind of have to understand and index a little bit how it's put together. If I give a little bit of an analogy, everyone's probably familiar with CPI. It's a basket, got lots of different things in there. Let's say we took automotive, and you've got combustion engines and you've got electric. Let's say your combustion engine car sells for 100,000 dirhams and then your average EV sells for 200,000 dirhams. Let's say that breakdown's been 70-30 in the favor of combustion, with a smaller segment of the market buying EV. All of a sudden, imagine if that switches the other way, where you've got 70% buying EV at double the price and less people buying combustion. That's one part of the index basket. If we look at the index for property, we track 42 communities. In 15 of those, we've seen properties where the premium between a new property and an existing property is over 20%, some up to 90%. So significant growth in there. on the surface, but when you dig down into it, it's within specific communities seeing these big jumps, and typically communities that haven't had a lot of off-plan activity in recent years. Somewhere like downtown Business Bay, there's always been a steady flow of projects. But take Sports City, Lewan, where now you've started to see big jumps where it was a project a year, now you're seeing a project a month launch in there at prices that could be double what an existing property, an older property, has traded at.
It's extraordinary, that quote, the figure you gave earlier about first quarter launches, rate of 1 every 18 hours.
That's a gasp, and it's not slowing down. Take onto that, we've got 4 master communities, right? 3 we talked about last month. Gaff Woods by Majid Al Futtaim, soon to launch. All apartment buildings out between, it's on the right by Ranches and Discovery, not Discovery Gardens, and the theme park that's there.
Yeah.
That's going to come online. They'll announce soon. All apartments in there coming in at where you sort of see MAF developing, that high-quality product. You're going to see those coming in. So new master community there. EMA with 2 master communities, DMAC with another one. You're going to have a significant amount of launches coming from these main players in the industry delivering a quality product with track records. And then you've got another 30, 40 plus developers filling in the gaps. So we're going to have a lot of projects coming in. That 35,000 or so units we've seen, I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 100,000 new units in the off-plan market before the end of the year.
And yeah, interesting time. And I hate to hark back to what's happened in the last 7 days, but, we've had people in that seat in the last couple of days saying it's been really strange. It's almost been a battle of new and old. And in many developments, the older villas, bizarrely, have fared better in the rain than some of the newer ones as well. Is that going to be at the back of mind of people?
I think so. Look, there's been a lot of, what do they call it, quality engineering, value engineering, where margins come into play. If you look at 20 years ago, it was built here, a lot bigger plots, a lot bigger built-up area. It's like an apartment building, bigger hallways, more common spaces. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and margins are getting pushed so that the developers are potentially making more. I think people will start to look at, it's always been interesting, the contractors. It's not just the master developer. They've got a lead contractor, subcontractors. I think more scrutiny or more interest will come into, all right, who's behind building this project? What's their track record been? Those older communities, I did really well in Ranches 1. Other people in Ranches 2 and Ranches 3, a little more issues. So I think you're going to see more interest or curiosity paid to who's actually behind the project, not just faced by the master developer.
The monthly report is out at the moment. Make sure you get your hands on it. A big thanks to Jean and all the team down at Property Monitor. Jean is the COO, Property Monitor. He's also Director of Market Intelligence and Research at Cavendish Maxwell. Thanks for battling the traffic and joining us this morning.
Anytime.